Hello, everyone. I wanted to share a summation of a meeting that we just had, and it was titled Practical Reset for the Mind. And before we began, we did a grounding meditation. And so I would like to invite you to experience that as well. And so if you would like to participate, take a moment and maybe just arrive here. You might find yourself getting comfortable in a supported position, a place where you can relax for a moment. And notice that there's nothing that you need to do yet. No need to change anything. I've noticed that most of us are not struggling because we don't have answers. We sometimes struggle because in the moment, something happens. There is no space between the thought and the response. And even in our conversation today, there was something that came forward that many of us live on a kind of conveyor belt, moving from one thing to the next. And when we lose those moments of pause, we begin to feel it. I've noticed that when we don't take the time, we can become irritated or reactive, or maybe even disconnected. And that awareness itself is already the beginning of a reset. In what we're exploring today is something very simple, not how to control the mind, but how to relate to it differently. So if you are comfortable, maybe allow your attention to settle. You might begin by noticing your breath, not because you have to control it, but because it is already happening. You might notice the inhale or even the exhale. And as you notice that, you might begin to notice where your body is supported, your feet, your back, your hands, just noticing contact. And at some point, a thought may appear, something from earlier or something ahead. No need to stop it. Just notice a thought is here. Gently ask, what is this thought creating in my body? Is there tension, tightness, or maybe even a shift in breathing itself? Just noticing now without forcing anything. Maybe ask quietly, is this thought helpful right now? Not right or wrong, just curiosity about whether it is helpful or not. And if it's not helpful, you might just allow a little space as if you don't have to follow it. And in that space, you may choose something small, a place to put your focus, maybe a breath, a posture, or even a slightly different way of seeing. Nothing dramatic, maybe just a small shift. And you might even notice even a small change can feel different. And what we've noticed together earlier is that sometimes this shift happens without effort. Maybe a calming, possibly a softening, maybe even a sense of stillness. Enjoy that experience for a bit, reminding your body that it is okay to take a rest. And when you're ready, and only when you're ready, gently bring your awareness back to where you're at, the room that you're in, bringing that space with you. What you just experienced, that moment of noticing that space, I believe that's the beginning of a skill. And something else came forward in our discussion today is that when the body begins to settle, the mind begins to organize around that state. So sometimes we don't think our way to peace, we experience our way into it. So I'd like to share the simple presentation that we created today. So welcome. The first slide that we have is the practical reset for the mind. And I think it begins with pausing, noticing, questioning, and then choosing. This is a short experience in working with your thoughts in real time. One of the opening reflections is that what if stress isn't only what's happening, but how the mind is interpreting what's happening? And we heard in this different ways today that the same situation can feel completely different depending on the state that we are in. We don't always need new answers. Sometimes we need space. Maybe it's the space between thought and response. What the pattern that comes forward is that we tend to have a thought, which creates a feeling, and that becomes the way that the body responds. And from that, we act. Something important came forward during the discussion that there's often a state before a thought, a mood, maybe a level of energy or a sense, it could be a sense of overwhelm or even calm. And that state begins to shape the thoughts that we have. So it can happen quickly. It can begin to feel like truth. But if we can notice our state, sometimes we might be able to change it. One of the things that's most important is realizing that our mind is not broken. It's designed to predict, to protect, to interpret. And it does this interpretation quickly. And many of the thoughts that we have are not even consciously chosen. They're patterns learned over time from experience from others, from repetition. And sometimes we're living inside beliefs, the beliefs that we never actually chose. One of the things that came forward in our discussion is that not every thought is helpful. So there is a simple reset that we can do, and this is a loop that you can choose anytime. It's to begin by pausing, noticing, questioning, and then choosing. And this becomes powerful when we remember we're not trying to fix everything. We're simply creating a little space at a time. So if we're going to break it down, let's just pause and create a moment of space to notice what thought is here. What is it creating? And something that we explored together is that often people go straight to the feeling without noticing that underneath there is a belief, a meaning. And maybe another question we could ask is this helpful? Is this the only way to see this? Or even, what might I be missing? Not to force an answer, but to open up a possibility, to choose what would serve me now. And sometimes that choice is not solving the problem, but simply being present and listening, maybe even allowing. So, if we're looking at the closing reflection, maybe an idea that could come forward is that you don't need to control your thoughts. Maybe just learn to relate to them. possibly a little differently. Maybe even a small moment of space could change everything. One of the, it was a monk that was talking about meditation, and he said, don't bar the front door to the thoughts. And sometimes there's obtrusive thoughts that come in. He simply said, open the back door and let them leave. So, one of the things that I'd like to leave you with is come as you are. There's no pressure, no performance, just practice. And as we reflect on what came forward today, there's a few things that I noticed. And part of that is that many of us are navigating busy minds and full lives. And when we feel the impact, sometimes we lose our moments of pause. That thoughts are often habits, patterns can be shaped by the past experience, and are not always something that we choose consciously. The idea came forward that overthinking can pull us deeper into stress, while presence, even briefly, can sometimes begin to soften it. We shared that listening to ourselves and to others without rushing to fix it is a powerful and real way to change. It doesn't come from forcing new thoughts, but from creating space, space to see differently. So the invitation is simple. The next time something arises for you, for in a situation, maybe you don't have to stop it. Maybe you don't have to solve it. Maybe just notice it. Create a little space and choose what's worth following. And that might be a worthy practice. Thank you for listening.